You people,
what's with him?
you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
I am Razor Ramon, the bad guy.
Here comes the Razor Ramon! We got a new champion!
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do. Hey yo, 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 hey yo.
That's a hell of an intro. God damn.
A lot of hey yos.
Well, we all were trying to do impressions of it before we went live, right? And
Terrible.
We just can't do it. We don't do it justice.
I've tried that before. I'm not going to do that again. It's not good.
But your enthusiasm was appreciated, though, I think. So, about a month ago, we lost Scott Hall.
Yep.
March 14th, 2022, at the age of 63 years old. I don't know, kind of a pillar of our childhood, I guess, from wrestling. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
like you think of like the people you watch growing up. It's like, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Razor Ramon.
Yep.
I almost feel like Razor was one of those people that crossed over, like people who didn't even know wrestling. Like they could see like a Razor shirt. They're like, oh, I know who Razor is. Like he's one of those wrestling guys.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't have to know wrestling to know who Razor Ramon was. Scott Hall.
That's a fair statement sometimes. And then they followed it up with, wrestling's fake, right?
Yeah, right.
Stupid asshole. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's fake. Oh, you still watch that?
Yeah, you still watch fucking The Big Bang Theory? Guess what? That's fake. That's fake. That is not real. That's a fake television program, but you fucking watch it. Oh, you still watch Grey's Anatomy? Guess what? That's fake. It's not real, but you watch it every fucking week and you get lost in it and you enjoy it and you go on the emotional roller coaster. Get off our dicks about it. We like wrestling. We like watching men in tights tell dramatic stories.
You got him hot now.
Yeah, we got red ass Mike now. God damn, we're off to a good start. It's supposed to be a tribute show. We have gotten, and more so quite a bit lately, and this is going to piss a lot of listeners off, well, the ones who are tuning in, requests for wrestling shows. When are you guys going to do a wrestling podcast? What are you guys going to talk more wrestling?
That's true.
Maybe we will, perhaps. But we thought, if we're ever going to take a chance to just do kind of like a free bonus show, we all loved Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. Let's shoot the shit, just get drunk and talk about him for a little bit and see what people think.
Maybe this will turn into something.
Maybe. People have asked for it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who listen to our show that this is not going to be for them. I understand that. We're not trying to replace anything. We're not trying to, change what Necronomipod is. We're just trying to do, something a little different. Have some fun with it.
Fair enough.
That's all.
It's something I've wanted to do for a while.
Yeah.
I feel like I was bringing it up a lot, and then all of a sudden there's some listeners that are like, oh, I don't even know anything about wrestling, but I just like listening to you guys talk about it.
The amount of listeners we've had that say, yeah, I don't know shit about wrestling, but when you guys talk about it, it's so much fun and cool to me, and I learn a lot. We had people on the Zoom happy hour for our $10 patrons a few weeks ago saying like, oh, I've been texting my friend all this wrestling stuff that I learned from you guys. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like,
Or like how people use kayfabe
yeah,
in the real world.
kayfabe and shoot and work and stuff like that.
Worked yourself into a shoot.
Yeah, all that fun stuff. For those that don't know, kayfabe means kind of like to protect the secrets. Like if,
Stay in character.
Yeah, if Ian were to be like, oh, Mike, I saw you eating that fucking double cheeseburger 2 minutes before we went on the air, I'd be like, hey, kayfabe, motherfucker. Like, don't tell people my business. Like, and in the wrestling business, kayfabe, kind of means like, don't give away the secrets. Like, people know it's fake, but you don't have to tell them how we do it or, things like that. A work means like fake, like predetermined, and a shoot means like, oh, that was kind of like legitimate or for real.
I'm just a casual observer on this show.
Yeah. Dave's here to learn, much like I am every fucking Sunday when I show up.
The roles are reversed.
Yeah.
I've ever like since I started hanging out with you guys, I hadn't really thought about wrestling for a long time. Like it was just not in my wheelhouse anymore.
Well,
like, for a long time.
You mean you grew up?
Right.
But like you tell us stories about stuff you used to go to.
Oh yeah.
And Ian and I are like, oh, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
What was the show? The strap match you saw?
Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Dusty Rhodes in an Indian strap match, I think like in 1984 at the Cleveland Convention Center.
That's awesome.
Me and my buddy took the train downtown. I think we were probably like 13.
I
remember that.
Old school NWA shit.
Yeah. Loved wrestling back in those days when I was younger. But I just haven't thought about it in a long time, so it's kind of interesting.
Well, as most normal people, probably grow up and they're like, all right, I'm gonna move on with my life.
Meanwhile, I'm sending pictures to you guys of Kane action figures at Target.
And then some of us don't grow up. Excuse me. But then, Dave, you even got back into it a little bit in the 90s, like the Attitude Era type with when wrestling was probably at its biggest it's ever been. WWE versus WCW, the Monday Night Wars. You watched it a little bit more then.
Yeah, when like my son was that age, we started getting into wrestling and watching all that. I remember one time we went to WWE, WWF at the time was in town, and it was the same day as a Cleveland Indians playoff game. So he had made, I forget what sign he'd made, probably a Stone Cold or a DX sign.
A DX suck it.
Probably a suck it sign. And we were walking to the arena, and it's right next door to the
Progressive field.
Where the Indians play. And like walking next to a bunch of Indians fans are like, oh, what's your sign saying? So we're like, it's a wrestling sign.
So suck it. Even the people who were like in favor of changing the Indians' name were like turning their noses up to you. Right. They're like, oh, look at these people. They're at the bottom of the barrel.
Fantastic.
But then during that time too, you became familiar with Scott Hall.
Oh yeah, watching all those old WCW shows, and it was a good time in wrestling back then.
You watched more WCW than Ian and I did back then.
We watched a lot of WCW. Like I can't really recall specifics like your fucking encyclopedia knowledge.
Not asking you to.
I remember it was pretty cool back in those days.
Yeah, you were watching the NWO. Ian and I were more WWE guys.
Yeah, it kind of felt like being a traitor to watch WCW.
I would watch it a little bit, and
I never watched it. I was like, "Fuck that."
I mean, WCW was on the cusp of crushing them.
Well, for 83 straight weeks, they kicked their
basically. Like if some different decisions had been made, it might be the WCW today, right?
Right. They could have bought out WWE. I mean, that was close. Like WWE was on hard times for a while, in like 95, 96, even into 97. If it wasn't for Stone Cold Steve Austin taking off, WWE might have went under.
That I think is probably a possibility, sure.
Yeah. With the NWO coming up. Scott Hall, like we said, born, and we're not going to do like a full bio type thing, anything like that. We're just going to kind of want to shoot the shit. But born October 20th, 1958. And he kind of came up like in that territory system, back when that was a thing before Vince McMahon bought up all the territories being like all the little minor promotions all across the country. That
in and of itself is a very interesting story, like how that came together and the fighting, cross promotion.
Oh man,
fighting and AWA and NWA, and like my favorite when I was a kid was Georgia Championship Wrestling. Mm-hmm. Like that was the best with Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer and all those guys. Fucking love that.
And then you had like Dusty Rhodes was in Georgia for a while, and Ric Flair and all those guys went through, I think.
Gordon Soley and Georgia Championship Wrestling, man, that was our jam.
Gordon Soley.
It was awesome. I used to get that Pro Wrestling Illustrated subscription.
Man,
like those are probably worth a fortune, right?
Ian and I would be jerking off over all of this memorabilia.
I had a subscription. I had tons of them. You just throw that shit out, I wish I would have put it in a box somewhere.
But who thinks about that back then? Yeah. Well, and that's what Scott Hall kind of came up through some of that, working in, Florida and Charlotte and Kansas City and stuff. And then kind of, I think, had his first big break in AWA, which you mentioned, Dave, which is up in like the Minneapolis territories for Vern Gagne, who was, I guess if you break it down after the territory, the territory system, there was the NWA, the AWA. NWA was like the South-ish promotion. AWA was like the Midwest-ish.
Was it like the Fabulous Thunderbirds and those guys up in AWA?
I think so. That sounds familiar. Yeah. Yeah, and then you had the WWF, which was like the New York, New England territory. And then, Vince McMahon started, when Vince McMahon bought the company from his dad, Vincent Kennedy, Vincent Kennedy is the Vince we know now. Vincent J. McMahon, his dad, when Vince Kennedy McMahon took over, the Vince we know now, he started buying up all the little territories and putting people out of business. And, that caused a whole kerfuffle. But so then Scott Hall ends up in, travels the country and goes and wrestles over in Japan and Germany and Puerto Rico. And then he manages, he comes back to WCW in like early 90s, 91, 92. And that's when he becomes known as the Diamond Stud, working with future world champion Diamond Dallas Page, who became his manager. And Scott Hall, was known as the Diamond Stud. He'd wear like an earring and, just like a cool club type guy. And Diamond Dallas Page was he got into the business really late. He was like late 30s, early 40s, I think even. Well, maybe not early 40s, but like late 30s when he got in. He was just as big as all the other wrestlers, but he was a talker, so he was a manager. Kind of gave Scott Hall his big break.
So DDP was not like double DP.
It was
with
not
4 penises. There's Diamond Dallas Page.
Diamond Dallas Page, yeah, not in this sense.
It's a diamond cutter, right?
Correct. He would go on to, like in the late 90s, become huge in WCW.
Yep. Double DDP. That sounds painful.
Is that what I said? Double DDP?
No, you just said DDP, and I was just clarifying for people that doesn't mean a double DP.
It's true.
Like a quad P. Quad penetration.
Gosh. Well, I don't even want
Sorry, I'm derailing.
I've never been to that part of Pornhub before. And then finally in 1992, he signs with the WWE. And, back then, like in the early 90s, WWE was going through a phase where it's like everybody had like a occupational gimmick. Like there was like,
Boss man.
The big boss man, a police officer. There was like hog farmers, hockey players,
Sergeant Slaughter,
dentists. And these are like maybe not 92, but these would come in the 90s. Well, so Scott Hall and self-admittedly grew up like an army brat. Like I think he grew up in Germany. His dad was big time in the military, and so Scott knows like, oh, I'm meeting with Vince McMahon. He's going to ask me what my background is. Like, I need to go in prepared with something because I don't want to be an army guy. Like, sometimes that's like the kiss of death, having a dentist is not going to be your world champion,
Right, yeah.
Stuff like that. So he had in his mind the name Razor. And from what I had watched an interview with him from obviously before he passed, and he said him and Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, who he was close with from working in AWA, had talked about the movie Scarface and kind of using that. And so in his meeting with Vince, he brought it up and did this Scarface impression for Vince. Well, Vince McMahon had, because he lives in his own bubble, had never seen Scarface.
He doesn't even watch movies, right? Really?
I think he kind of does his own thing. I heard once that he's a big fan of Sons of Anarchy, though. Like he would watch that like on the airplane, like when he had downtime.
I like Sons of Anarchy.
So,
side note, my grandpa took me to see Scarface when I was 12 years old, and it was in 1983, and it was the most times the F word had been said in a movie to date.
I think we've discussed this.
It was
before.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I heard fuck like 180 times. It's fucking fantastic.
So he does this like on the spot impression with Kurt Hennig in the meeting with Vince to like kind of say like, oh, this is like the idea I have for the Razor gimmick. And of course, Vince is like, I fucking love it. And so they went, I think like, back in the day, like they used to do like vignettes for guys like on the streets, like Jeff Jarrett, they did in Nashville, Razor, they did in Miami. But like, they like even Bruce Pritchard tells stories now. Bruce Pritchard's like an executive with WWE. Like they never got like approval or clearance or any of the paperwork. They would just do it like guerrilla style, like show up, record, and then just get the fuck out. Like that's what they would do. So they would show up, this is, we're going to play a clip here. This is one of the first vignettes for Razor Ramon, and a vignette, they would air him on TV, like kind of like hyping like, oh, this new superstar is coming to the World Wrestling Federation. And so this is the first one for Razor Ramon.
He's like wearing a Don Johnson Miami Vice white blazer with no shirt underneath.
Well, and so what he said was I just heard this. He said that they sent the company down. They were like going to meet up and like with him and be like, oh, we're going to, we'll take you out. We'll buy you some clothes for the gimmick. And he goes, guys, like, I can't just buy clothes off the rack because he's a big fit guy. He's like, I have to get stuff custom made to wear how it fits. So he's like, they bought me one outfit and then I went out and got my own stuff and then just showed up to Vince and was like, can I, wear more than one? Because if you're going to show 4 weeks of vignettes, I don't be wearing the same fucking clothes and look like I'm, a bum. So I want to have different outfits. So yeah, so he's got a white suit on in this vignette. And here we go.
Ramon. Razor Ramon. I come from the gutter. I know that. I got no education. Who needs it? Look at me. Look at me. Look at the gold. Look at my clothes. I'm a success.
That's great.
Dave, I said play a clip of Razor, not Al Pacino.
Look at the gold. I'm a success.
Well, so it was during this run. He was in WWE for about 4 years. 4-time Intercontinental Champion. Had the infamous ladder match with Shawn Michaels, which WrestleMania 10. A lot of people consider that one of the greatest matches of all time.
I think you and I are on the same page with that the second one's the best.
I think that
better of the two.
I think that ladder match at WrestleMania 10 is the most overrated match in WWE history. Not to say that it's bad, but it's certainly not fantastic.
I watched them both today.
Yeah.
Again, SummerSlam, I think, holds
way
up.
better.
Yeah.
Way better.
It tells a story more with Shawn getting his leg busted up the whole time.
I think that Razor Shawn match, and that's from SummerSlam 95, might be Razor's best match.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, it's a good match.
And Shawn was wearing fantastic tights though that day. Was that the teal tights, right?
White boots, yeah.
Teal tights.
The teal tights with the black.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ian's like, yep. Try not to chub up over here. Yep.
The first one, I like the finish of the one from WrestleMania 10. How Shawn gets caught in the ropes with its leg.
Yeah.
He finally gets out, and then his arm gets caught in the ropes.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good finish.
It's a really
unique.
good finish. It's just different. Like, nowadays they have these ladder matches and, they have 15, 20 ladders and it's all crazy.
Right.
That match, they had one ladder and they didn't even have a backup for WrestleMania 10. They literally had one ladder. If that would have broke, they didn't know how they would have done the finish. They look back in that afterwards, because at the time they didn't think anything of it.
Right.
But they're like, well, what the fuck will we have done if that ladder would have broke? And for those who don't know, a ladder match is, they kind of hang the belt from like the rafters to 20 feet above the ring. And the guys have to fight and then climb a ladder to grab the belt to win. So it's a very stupid gimmicky match. And when you watch it, it just exploits how, fake wrestling could be. Cause it's like a guy gets knocked out, but if Ian knocks me out and he's slowly climbing the ladder and you're like, motherfucker, just climb the ladder and grab the belt. This would be over. But then
I gotta dig deep and I gotta climb and I gotta climb.
Yeah, that's that dig deep.
Step
and
more.
And they take 2 steps up and they start reaching. Like, motherfucker, you're 12 feet away. Go up and reach. You don't have to start down there.
Well, that was the thing with the SummerSlam one was Scott Hall pulled a second ladder out from under the ring for that one.
Yeah.
And Vince was like, I don't even know if that ladder is legal or not. So, playing up on this,
right?
How crazy it is that a second ladder got involved.
Well, and so I haven't seen that second one in a while. You did today. At the end, when Shawn falls off the ladder, that was not supposed to happen.
You can tell.
Yeah. Razor called the spot then where he charged Shawn and Shawn backflipped him out of the ring and then climbed back up. That was just an on the spot because that was not part of the planned finish. The ladder gave out on Shawn when he was trying to get the belt.
I feel like in that era, 95?
1995.
95 through WrestleMania 14, you could tell when shit went wrong by Shawn's body language.
He gets
matches.
pissed.
Yeah, he used to get real mad.
A little bit of a crybaby.
Yeah,
like a whiner and yeah.
Yeah.
Not the most professional.
He was
worker.
slamming. He was after that spot goes wrong. He was kind of slamming the ladder around a little bit. You know, you could tell he was pissed off.
Yeah.
Same with the beginning of that match because they put the belt up too high.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
and isn't he like bitching at the ref or something?
Yeah, he's real mad.
Yeah.
They fucked up.
But can you imagine if the belt was too high, you know, and you have like you have a 12-foot ladder and you're like, motherfucker, I can only go so high. And they're like, what are they gonna do? Like, bzz, they like lower the belt while you're standing there, like the most anticlimactic thing in the history of wrestling.
Might be a long match till they figure out how they're gonna fix that.
Yeah, they had to.
Someone's got to run to fucking Home Depot and get like a 30-foot ladder. But I don't know. This is when Scott Hall, you know, or Razor Ramon, you know, became the household name that, you know, he would go on to be. He was never a world champion and throughout his entire career, but he was always like the guy, and he'll say this himself, he was the guy that people would work with before you went on to the main event. Like if you could do well with Scott Hall, have a good story, have good matches, all right, now you've passed the test. Now you go work with Bret Hart, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, you know, the world champs.
And he worked with all those guys too.
Yeah. Oh,
but he didn't have a problem putting people over.
No, he didn't. Scott Hall is one of the coolest wrestlers of all time. Just charisma, just over, like you want to root for him. He didn't have to win all the time for you just to get behind him.
Are there guys like that now whose main job is to put people over like that, and they're never going to be a champion, but they're kind of B+ list wrestlers?
Nowadays it's different because I feel like they put fucking world titles on everybody.
There's a lot of belts nowadays too.
There's so many belts. It's different than it was back then. Back then it was what? The tag belts, the Intercontinental belt, and the world title.
And they threw the European in what, like 97?
Yeah, after Scott Hall was already in WCW, but WCW had its own belts. But so I mean, I'm sure there are. I would have to really go back, Dave, and look and think about that. But it's different now. I feel like they strap world titles on people that probably don't even need. Like the Scott Halls nowadays would have been like a 5-time world champ. They fucking use the belt just like a prop type thing. Which, I mean, it is a prop.
Well, you have 3 of them, so, you know.
Well, yeah, but I've won mine in various grappling competitions. It's well documented.
Before we move past the ladder matches, there's that thing that gets said all the time about how Shawn had a match with the ladder.
Yeah.
That didn't need Scott Hall in those matches, or at least the first one.
The WrestleMania 10 from what was like 94.
Yeah, that Shawn had a match with a ladder. I think that's really unfair to Scott Hall.
It is. And the interview I just recently watched with Scott, he addressed it and he was like, I don't care. He's like, people can say whatever they want. He's like, Shawn and I had a great match. I know what I did. Shawn was the star of the match, but, you know, I did my part and people can think what they want.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right partner, you know, it's never going to work. Shawn was great in those matches, but Scott was good too. Scott actually said after their 95 match, the SummerSlam one, Shawn Michaels is widely known as one of the greatest in-ring performers of all time. And Scott said that after the 95 match, they got backstage and Shawn said to Scott, you know, you're the only one who doesn't consider yourself my equal. And Scott said that I took that as the greatest compliment I've ever heard, you know, in my career. So take that for what it's worth. This is like a real life type thing. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, Sean Waltman, who was the 1-2-3 kid, and Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, all had their real life. They were like best friends backstage. The Clique, they were known as. The Clique. They played the backstage politics. You know, they played ribs on other people.
A lot of politics going on there.
A lot of politics. A lot of controversy backstage from that group. And I guess it all kind of culminated when Scott, in 1996, when WWE and WCW were having like their big, you know, their rivalry was getting to like a heated pace. WCW now had Hulk Hogan and Macho Man and, you know, all these big names. They were now WCW, which was Ted Turner's money, were offering guaranteed contracts. WWE at this point was not offering guaranteed money. They were offering guaranteed dates, like I think it was like $1,500 for 10 dates, guaranteed. That was the guarantee.
Wow.
But now on top of that, you can make, you know, whatever from your pay-per-views and your merchandise and, you know, your cut of the house and stuff like that. WCW was offering these guys huge contracts, you know, close to $1 million a year to jump ship. So Scott Hall and his friend Kevin Nash in May of 96 were going to leave to go to WCW and left. Well, their last night in the company in the WWE, they, as we said earlier, broke kayfabe in the middle of the ring at Madison Square Garden and were hugging their friends Shawn Michaels and Triple H, who were, they were a mix of good guys and bad guys. And wait, they can't be hugging in the middle of the ring. Like, this is blasphemy.
Jim Cornette was real mad about that.
There are people in the business that are still mad to this day about it.
Yeah, they broke character in front of everybody.
They broke character in front of everyone to say goodbye to their friends because they were leaving the company, which is essentially what it was. And then
a lot of neckbeards in the audience probably were not real pleased with that.
Well, and there's the only footage of that is the fan cam, right? Like it's just a fan's video footage of the what is it called? The curtain call, they called it. So, there's not even WWE cameras there. It's just a fan's video. And you can hear the fans like, what? What is this? Are you telling me they're all friends?
It's still real to me, damn it.
Right. So Kevin Nash, Scott Hall leave, and then that's when they go to WCW, and the NWO is born. And arguably, the NWO was the biggest thing in wrestling history, right? I mean, you have Hulkamania, you have Austin 316, and you have the NWO, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
The way they executed it was very well done. With Scott just randomly showing up. We used that in the intro.
Yeah.
You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
Yeah. Because
he just randomly showed up.
A WWE guy who just like jumps the barricade in street clothes, shows up on Nitro, WCW show, and just starts talking. And this was before the internet, when, before people knew like, oh, he left his contract last week and, he's here now.
Right. And
they played it off like it was a WWF invasion. And it was Scott Hall saying like, I'm here and I'm going to take over this company. And you know who I am. You don't know why I'm here. And then then Kevin Nash shows up a few weeks later and they're talking about, well, there's two of us now. Just wait for that third man. That third man's coming and he's going to, then we're really going to take over. And then that leads to what? Bash at the Beach.
Yeah, which was, so Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, their mysterious third man against Sting, Lex Luger, and Macho Man.
Yeah.
Everyone's got the Sting paint on.
For Sting's team, yeah.
Yeah.
That neon paint and all
and it's like they gradually take everybody out. Like they hurt Lex Luger first. He gets taken out on a stretcher. Macho Man gets fucked up, and it's like kind of down to Sting. He's getting beat up. And then the third guy is...
And as they're double teaming Sting. Yeah. And then...
Hulk Hogan comes out and the ultimate good guy becomes the heel.
Yeah, because Hogan's coming out and you're thinking, oh, he's the stick up for WC. Because remember, we said WCW already had Savage and Hogan for a few years now. Yeah. So they were WCW guys. And, you're thinking Hogan's going to, stick up for WCW. Here he goes. And then he drops the leg on Randy Savage.
Yep. It's like, God damn. And everybody starts fucking throwing cups in the...
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing. WCW had no control over their fans. In WWE, you will rarely see shit thrown in the ring. I mean, it happens, but rarely. WCW was no holds barred. Those fans threw everything in the ring.
That whole ring was filled with trash.
Yeah.
Is that the clip where
it's not the Scott you're thinking of? That was later on.
In the head, he just brushes his hair back.
Yeah, well,
it's one of the greatest clips ever.
And that's what makes him so fucking cool. What Dave's referring to is Scott Hall's cutting a promo in the ring. This was in the heyday of NWO, and because it's no holds barred in WCW, like a fan throws a full beer, like in a plastic cup, and it hits Scott Hall right in the head. And Scott Hall just takes his hands, rubs his hands through his hair because his hair is already slicked back. And just keeps going with his promo. Doesn't miss a beat.
Fantastic.
He's a fucking professional.
Hulk Hogan is cutting like a shoot promo almost for that, talking about how he built WWE up to what it is and all this stuff.
Did you like? He was
going hard on them.
I always found Hulk Hogan's NWO promos to be so boring and so long. And just like, you're like, dude, this is a snooze fest.
That one wasn't bad just because it's like, I guess like, oh fuck. He's calling out the competition and, this big heated thing.
Yeah. I don't know. His promos after that, at least I was just like, dude, these are long. And I think even Kevin Nash will tell stories now Kevin Nash was Diesel in the WWF, and maybe someday we'll talk more about Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash is cool.
Kevin Nash is a cool dude. Him and Scott Hall were best friends up until the end. Kevin Nash will talk about how, like, if him and Scott knew they weren't going to work that night, like in the ring, it was in Hulk's contract with WCW that he could have beer in his locker room. So they'd be just drinking the entire day. Like, you had to show up at like 1 o'clock for TVs. They don't go on the air till 8, 9 o'clock. Kevin Nash goes, Hulk, we know Hulk's cutting those 15-minute promos. We'd be out there shit-faced. You just put sunglasses on. You might stagger a little bit. That's all you got to do. And you just go to the back. Like, what a life.
Well, that's why I like
guaranteed $1 million a year. You show up, you know.
Just fucking around.
Yeah, with your... Well, I mean, I guess we show up, just fuck around and get drunk with our buddies. We're not getting $1 million a year, but...
So was Bischoff was running the show at those years, right?
Yeah, Eric Bischoff.
In charge?
Eric Bischoff was like the president of WCW, and
like he reported to Ted Turner. Is that how that was set up?
He didn't report directly to Ted Turner. He had other people there, but they were like the people at like the CNN towers looked like snubbed their noses at like, oh, this is the wrestling bunch.
Sure.
Meanwhile, Ted Turner though had a hard on because like he wanted to put Vince McMahon out of business.
Oh, absolutely.
This was his toy. So, like...
Oh, it's fun.
Eric Bischoff tells the story, like, he had a meeting set up one day with, like, whoever he reported to and Ted Turner. Oh, man, I'm trying to remember. Bischoff had a plan. He wanted to do something. But 20 seconds into the conversation with Ted Turner goes, well, Eric, what do we need to do to compete with Vince McMahon? And Bischoff's like, I was so caught off guard. He goes, I don't... 2 hours live every Monday night. Ted Turner looks at his guy and goes... Give Eric 2 hours every Monday night on TNT. And Bischoff's like, oh, fuck. Like, this was before WCW had live, and WWF was doing Monday Night Raw live on USA Network. WCW was still doing, like, Saturday nights, like, taped in advance. Now Bischoff's like, oh, fuck. I got to do 2 hours live every week. I didn't think he was going to say yes. But that's what Ted Turner was just throwing whatever he could. He didn't notice. It was fucking just money going. So Bischoff had this money that he could just make contract offers to, spend money on whatever. And Bischoff came up with the NWO idea. And then, it gets debated, did Bischoff help the company? Did he hurt the company? What did he do? I like Eric Bischoff. I think he's got a good mind. But Eric Bischoff also keeps a residence in Cody, Wyoming. I'm a big fan of Cody, Wyoming, as well established.
I think we've discussed that before.
Okay. Well, I'm just reminding everybody.
You're planning a trip out there, right?
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
I remember I used to play Bischoff in the NWO PlayStation.
Did you get your ass whooped? Like his what was his like?
I don't know. I just remember playing Bischoff all the time. I don't remember why.
He probably was fast and had really good kicks, but goddamn,
I might be misremembering that. Who knows?
So I guess, and again, I don't want to draw this all out, but we talked about. I guess we didn't talk about it, but during this time, like Scott Hall is notorious, like big drinker. He had a lot of demons in his real life. What was I telling you, Dave? I think I heard an interview with Kevin Nash where he said that one night him, Shawn Michaels, and Scott Hall split like 33 somas each while mixing booze with it. Like in the 90s, that was the lifestyle for wrestlers. Like they couldn't do a weed. That was against the drug policy. So meanwhile, they're pilling themselves up and they're drinking all this alcohol. And that's why a lot of these guys have passed, really because of, the toll it took on their bodies.
I don't know how you can even do that. I think about drinking all night and then wrestling the next day. Like it's like 11 o'clock Friday night now. I've been drinking for a few hours. I'm laying on my couch until like 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. I think about going into a ring and being slammed through a table.
And on top of that, Dave, if you're a wrestler, you'd have to wake up. And again, your show just ends at 11. You're now going to drink till 3 or 4.
Right.
Sleep, travel, go work out, then get to the building, and then go work that night.
I don't even know how that's humanly possible. I'm not going to move until 3 p.m. tomorrow.
And then when you do nothing. And then when you do, it's going to be like eat a Wendy's triple cheeseburger. And then you're going to roll back over and go to sleep.
Sorry, continue.
No, so my whole point was like Scott Hall had admitted like he came from an alcoholic family. His mom and his dad were raging alcoholics. He suffered through alcoholism and just substance abuse his entire life. And, his career probably could have went on a lot longer had it not been for that. WCW closed in 2001 when WWF bought them out. WWF brought the NWO into the WWE in 2002, February of 2002. By May of 2002, Scott Hall was fired because of his antics, and the plane ride from hell was the final straw, which if we ever end up doing a wrestling show, the plane ride from hell will be its own.
That's a good story.
Episode. But allegedly Scott Hall sexually assaulted a stewardess on a flight attendant, on the flight. And when, by the time the dust settled and they landed the plane, it was the plane ride from hell was a overseas. It was a chartered flight that WWE had from Europe back to the United States, but it got delayed. They were on the ground for so long, and you just have all these wrestlers sitting on a plane, taking pills, doing whatever extracurriculars, drinking. They went through 3 different drink carts before they even took off on the plane ride from hell. So you have all these guys who are, who can hold their drug and alcohol to an extent on this 12-hour flight. Scott Hall ended up passing out. He claims that he thinks he was H-bombed, which is a halcyon someone put in his drink, because he goes, look, I've always been very open about what I can do. I know my tolerance. I did not have enough to be blacked out. He claims he was blacked out when he sexually assaulted the flight attendant. Anyways, they get back and, the plane lands and he was let go by the WWE. And
what year was this?
2002.
Okay.
And so after that, he made appearances in like TNA, which is Total Nonstop Action, another company that Impact Wrestling, it's known as now.
It's not tits and ass.
It's not tits and ass in this sense, but I think that's what they were playing off of.
Understood.
And then a lot of like Juggalo Championship Wrestling, our good friends in St. Clown Posse.
Wow.
He did a lot of appearances for them over the years. But, never really got back to anything big, I think, because of the substance abuse. You can Google Scott Hall and just see probably 15 different mugshots, things like that.
Like by that time in the industry, WWE had taken over everything, right?
Yes, sir.
So if you get fired from them, you're kind of relegated to the minor league, so to speak, the indie.
Absolutely. Other than like
wrestling.
that TNA Impact Wrestling, which was around, but they're nowhere near.
That's
the
your
level.
options,
That's
though.
the
What
options.
else are you going to do?
That's it. So, that's your life. Either you leave wrestling or you do that. There's no other big time promotion to go to once WCW went under. I think before we get to like the wrap up part, Ian, I think you had a list of some matches.
Yeah, there was a bunch that I watched. We already talked about Bash at the Beach, and we talked about the ladder matches. The one that I watched today, one of the ones that stood out to me was Royal Rumble 1993 versus Bret Hart
For the WWF title.
That was a good match.
Yeah. I was going to be a nerd and be like, was that Sacramento? Might have been. I don't know.
It just starts off as a fucking good match. Bret Hart goes out, gives the sunglasses to the kid like he does in every, before every match. And then Razor Ramon, he just walks up, takes his toothpick and fucking flicks it at the kid.
Badass. Yeah, that's great.
Like as soon as Bret walks away from the kid, he just walks up and fucking flicks it at this kid.
And that was Bret Hart's gimmick, right? Like he would take a sunglass, he wore these, special pink and black sunglasses to the ring. Right. He'd always give them to some little kid. And then Scott Hall fucking throws a toothpick. And that was Scott Hall's thing. He always had a toothpick in his mouth and then one behind his ear. That's awesome.
He fucking nailed that kid.
That's heel heat. That's heel heat.
That is the most heel thing to do ever. Flick a toothpick at a kid's face.
Yeah, I would say so.
But it was a good match. I enjoyed that match a lot.
They had a match later that year in June at King of the Ring, which was like a tournament, and they were the opening match of the tournament. It was also really good, and maybe even better than the Royal Rumble one. But yeah, another good match.
It had a good finish with Bret turning around a sharpshooter on him.
Yeah.
And then another one that I watched, which was just absolutely absurd, was Razor versus the 1-2-3 Kid with Ted DiBiase in the 1-2-3 Kid's corner.
Oh,
and
it was heel 1-2-3 Kid.
Yes, it was at In Your House 6.
Who's the 1-2-3 Kid?
Sean Waltman.
X-Pac.
Oh, okay.
X-Pac he became known as. So when he first came in to the WWF, he was kind of like a job guy. But then they did this angle where he beat Razor Ramon on Monday Night Raw when Razor was a bad guy. Like, oh my God, this little job kid just beat Razor Ramon. And because he pinned Razor 1, 2, 3, he became known as the 1, 2, 3 kid.
Got it.
So then he was one of the ones that became part of the Clique and friends with Razor and Diesel and all that. And then what Ian's talking about then is he went heel. He became a bad guy, teamed up with the dastardly $1 million man who was a manager at this point, and then had a match at In Your House 6. So
Rage in the Cage.
Rage in the Cage. So that would have been. Oh, is that the Crybaby match?
Yep, that's what I was gonna say.
February of 1996, Louisville, Kentucky.
This guy.
This encyclopedic knowledge just kills me.
Oops.
I don't know how you can fucking remember that.
I don't know either. I just do. I really don't know how. I don't actually study it.
1, 2, 3 kid comes walking out, pushing a stroller, and there's a teddy bear in the stroller, and it has a bottle, and there's like a diaper and stuff.
Like a heel, like a real heel.
Yep. And then so the match ends in like Ted DiBiase's trying to get involved. He's talking shit to Razor. Razor turns around and 1, 2, 3 kid has all this baby powder ready to throw in his face. Razor blocks it, fucking throws it back in his face, pins him. But at the end, Razor puts a diaper on Sean Waltman, like picks his fucking leg up, changes his diaper, takes the bottle and is like spraying milk all over his face.
Meanwhile, like Waltman's still wearing all of his tights.
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
not like he's naked.
No.
He's just spraying it on his tights.
So he gets the diaper on him, like actually puts his diaper on him, and then takes all this baby powder and just fucking throws it all over his face. So good.
I forgot all about that.
I'm like, this is one of the most absurd things.
I think it was a diaper match, wasn't it? Like
Yeah,
that was
something like
whoever
that.
lost was going to get put in a diaper.
Right.
Yeah. Ugh. And then
Like when he put his leg up, he had the diaper and then he had the baby powder too. So when he put his leg up, I'm like, is he gonna like for real put baby powder? What the fuck is happening here?
Razor's like, hey man, this ain't the first time I changed a diaper. You don't want to get dry or moist down there.
The other thing that I made note of today too, with like just how cool of a heel he was, like flicking the toothpick in the kid's face.
Yeah.
The second ladder match with Sean, he's like looking like he's going to set up the ladder. And Vince is like, oh, Razor's going to set up the ladder. And then he just like lets it go on Sean's leg and like shrugs his shoulder and walks away. It's
just little things like that make him so good in the ring. Underrated guy. So I think we might have, maybe we talked about it before, but anyways, we talked about Diamond Dallas Page earlier. In like 2013, 2014, Diamond Dallas Page got one of his friends, Jake the Snake, to come live with him. At the time, Jake the Snake was strung out on all of the drugs and the alcohols.
crack was a big one, right?
I think that was at his lowest point. Yeah. He was on crack. And that's all documented in a fantastic documentary called The Resurrection of Jake the Snake. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, if you want a redemption story, The Resurrection of Jake the Snake is absolutely phenomenal.
Pretty good, yeah. I agree.
You don't even have to like wrestling to like this. But like, early in the movie, they get a call, and this is not fake. This is real life, an actual documentary, real life stuff. They get a call from Scott Hall, who is telling these guys, I'm dying. He's not coherent. Diamond Dallas Page invites Scott Hall to come live with him and Jake the Snake too in Smyrna, Georgia. It's Diamond Dallas Page's house. He calls it the accountability crib. And Scott Hall becomes like a secondary character in this Jake the Snake movie where these guys are getting rehabilitated, sobering up, kind of finding themselves again.
Well, you see him get there at the airport, and he's in a wheelchair, and a lot worse than they expected when they told him to come down. Yeah.
He's all bloated and
It's absolutely
awful.
heartbreaking to see him, the way he shows up.
Yeah.
And then I remember one of the first scenes is Diamond Dallas Page has developed this new, like, and I think it's like a manly type yoga called DDP yoga, which, you can find out there everywhere. The first day he's trying to train Scott Hall on the yoga, and you literally hear Scott Hall's hip popping in and out.
Ugh.
Like while they're doing it. Like he's broken down. He's at his, he's at the end of his, the end of his run with the way he was going. But anyways, he was featured heavily in that. Him and Jake the Snake both recovered at that point. And in 2014, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall was inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame, and then was again inducted in 2020 as a member of the NWO. Two-time WWE Hall of Famer.
It's crazy to see him in that documentary and then see him giving the Hall of Fame speech, the one
2014.
the one that we used in the intro for this.
But bad guys do.
Yeah. He looks like a completely different person. He looks so good.
Yeah.
After he got clean and took care of his body some more, was able to move around better.
Because he always had a great physique, like when he was in shape and when he was doing the work. But yeah, you know, he was just on a bad path with whatever he was doing. And there's videos out there. I mean, if you YouTube it, like him showing up at those independent promotions in front of 30 people, and they have to carry him to the ring.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like
And that
just
documentary we watched a couple weeks ago,
right.
really bad.
And then, you know, there's the documentary like what we watched on the network. ESPN did one of their 30 for 30s on him. And then there's the resurrection of Jake the Snake. But you can find a lot of that stuff. And Jake the Snake, too, like both of them. There's stuff with them and their independent promotions, like, you know, fans getting in their faces. And, you know, these guys are not even coherent. They don't know what they're doing.
There's one from here in town with Jake the Snake.
In Lakewood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was a mess. That one actually, if I remember correctly, that like kind of went viral and spread around the internet big time. Yeah.
Unfortunately, all of this stuff with both guys went viral.
Yeah.
You know, Scott Hall has said he had tried the 12 steps like 10 or 15 times. It didn't work. He finally met with a counselor who told him he had to address, they didn't think he was an alcoholic. They thought he was using drugs and alcohol to bury other feelings he had. Part of it he attributes to perhaps his mom and dad being alcoholics. The other thing was in 1983, he was working as a bouncer outside of a nightclub in Orlando and got into an altercation with a guy over a girl. And the guy pulled a gun on Scott. They ended up wrestling around. Scott got the gun, shot the guy in the head and killed him. Scott never really addressed that. There was not enough evidence. He wasn't charged with anything because it was, you know, there was no evidence to charge him, I guess, at the time, whatever the situation might be, self-defense. But he never dealt with those feelings.
PTSD.
They think, you know, PTSD would have been a major part of it. So that mixed with the wrestling lifestyle, perhaps.
Wasn't he initially charged and he dropped it?
It was initially charged, but then there was just lack of evidence, they said.
They let it go, yeah.
It was let go. So I don't know. I have a few other fun facts. Scott Hall, like we said earlier, he never was a world champion. For as big as he was, as good as he was, never won a world title in WWE or WCW.
Is he one of the top 5 wrestlers never to be a world champion?
I would say the top 3 off the top
three?
of my head would be Scott Hall, Roddy Piper, and Mr. Perfect.
Roddy Piper's a big one.
Yeah. And by world, I mean like WWE, NWA, WCW. They might have won them in small. Like I think Kurt Hennig was an AWA world champion, but I'm not sure that, you know, for the big leagues, I don't know if that counts. So those would probably be the top 3 off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more, but Scott Hall never participated in a Royal Rumble match, which I always found interesting.
That is interesting.
He was always in a world title with like the one with Bret Hart or
Right.
in an Intercontinental title match on the pre-show or like the, you know, the matches build up. The last little fun tidbit, Scott Hall came up or is credited with giving Sting the idea for like the Crow face paint, the black and
Oh,
white
there you
that
go.
he came up with. Yeah. When he was feuding with the NWO. So. Scott Hall had a great mind for the business. I know Shaw Waltman put after Scott passed away, you know, last month, he was the smartest wrestling guy I've ever been around. His mind for the business was fantastic.
It's rare to see a guy or hear about a guy that was so willing to put other people over like that.
Yeah.
I feel like, and I listen to a lot of stuff about Shawn Michaels.
And by
all
put
that
over, you mean like he lose a match, let somebody else win.
Right.
That's what put over means.
Like no big ego.
Yeah, like Shawn Michaels is notorious for not wanting to drop belts.
Yeah.
There's a lot of criticism towards Triple H. Like Triple H never loses matches.
Right. You never hear that about Scott Hall.
No. For him to put Sean Waltman over when Sean Waltman's just this average guy.
A nobody.
Yeah.
Shaw Waltman is, I mean,
He didn't even have a fucking name.
he was 6
He got the name afterwards.
right, 6 foot, 180 pounds. Like, you know, relatively speaking, that's smaller than all of us sitting here right now, you know?
Yeah.
And he goes in the ring and he's going to beat Scott Hall, who's, you know, 6 foot whatever, 240 pounds of just muscle.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we'll talk. If this turns into something more, there'll be a lot of conversations about egos and not wanting to lose and taking things a little too serious sometimes.
Well, and the thing with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash both is like they were like, we don't give a fuck if we win or lose. Like we have $1 million guarantee. You can put me on TV or not. You can beat me every night or not. Right. I'm getting $1 million. Right. That's all that matters. But then
that guaranteed added to the contract changes the opinion a lot.
And Scott Hall was putting people over before he had the guarantee,
right?
Because he knew it was important to build up younger guys. But like there was another story where when he was in WCW, Scott Hall was going to wrestle a young Chris Jericho, and the plan was for Scott to go over, win the match. Well, he told Chris, "No, you're going to go out there. You go over. Tell him it was on me. I made the call." Jericho beats him. He gets the back. Bischoff starts cutting a promo on Scott, you know, yelling at him and stuff. And Scott's like, you know, I'm just trying to make this younger guy. You know, what are you going to do? Fire me? Like, you know, I'm
$1 million contract guarantee.
I'm one of the biggest names you have here. Like, you know, and I don't know that mind. Like he might be the coolest wrestler of all time. Like he was just so cool and laid back and chill.
Like I said, with the drop in the ladder on Sean's leg like that, just like this effortless bad guy shit.
Yeah. And they used to say back in before they were doing live TVs in WWF, you know, they were doing like a lot of syndication and stuff, and everything was tape delayed and or taped and then edited. If he messed up a move, he would stop. He would look right at the camera and he would mouth take 2. And then he would just do the same thing again. And then they're like, well, I guess that now the editors know, like, this is where you cut it. And he's going to do the same thing again. Like, that's so fucking cool. And like, that's not like fake. Like, that's the real life stuff that, you know, you hear about after the fact.
Looks like I was shocked when I found out that Sean and Razor were working the ladder matches at house shows leading up to that. Because as a kid, you don't know there's no internet. There's nothing like that. So
house shows being the non-televised events.
Right.
Yeah.
They were just in like basic arenas.
Right.
So that was a big shock to me. Like when I started, you know, reading about things more when I was getting older, it's like, oh, fuck, they've been working on this for a while. Yeah. You just never knew.
Right. Well, and then I guess that's why the match gets so praised. They had their system figured out.
Yeah.
All right, last thing, you know, any last, if you had to recommend a match or something for someone to watch, you got anything, Ian?
The ladder match from SummerSlam 95.
That's a good one.
I think that's probably his best match, in my opinion.
Dave, anything from WCW you remember?
No.
No?
I would defer to you guys.
All right.
Bash at the Beach is worth watching from WCW.
Was that June or July of 96? Whatever it is, Bash at the Beach 96. That's the one to watch. I'm embarrassed I don't know, but I'm not a WCW expert. But either way, yeah, I agree. That's
the match isn't the greatest in the world, but the NWO coming together at the end, people throwing the trash, Hogan's cutting a promo, and Scott Hall is like egging the crowd on the whole time. Like he's just walking around the ring, just getting people more and more fired up.
Yeah.
So I think that one's worth watching too.
All right. And then also that first promo when he comes to WCW, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
People are like fucking shocked. Like nobody even knows what to do. Like what is happening?
Yeah. All right. Well, we just wanted to touch base on Scott Hall a little bit.
What match would you recommend?
Well, I was going to say the SummerSlam one, so I'm trying to think now if there was going to be something else that I would recommend. The match with the Bret Hart matches were good. Royal Rumble 93 and King of the Ring 93. I like those. His match with Diesel at SummerSlam 94. That's the one where it's for the Intercontinental belt. And Shawn is in Diesel's corner, and it's in Chicago. And so Razor has Walter Payton in his corner. That's a fun match.
Sweetness.
And they told stories afterwards where like they briefly went over the match in the back and then they went into the ring to like kind of rehearse it before some spots. And they were like, oh, well, probably because they were on fucking somas and booze. None of them really remembered. Walter Payton remembered every single thing they had talked about and was like, no, this is when you do this and you do this. And they attributed to like, he used to memorize plays, like, you know, for football.
Sure.
He knows what he's doing. But they said he was so great to work with. And that him and Sean outside the ring had fantastic chemistry because Sean would like egg him on. And then as soon as Walter Payton made like a move towards Sean, the crowd would go nuts. And then Payton would just like stare at him. And, you know, it would be incredible.
That's great.
So that was SummerSlam 94. So that's always a good one too.
Real quick, because we always talk about Shawn Michaels tights. Big fan of Razor, all in red.
Yeah. He
Red
always had good
Speedo,
tights too.
red elbow pads, red boots.
Well, the right elbow is always black.
Right, yes.
And then it goes red on the left and then the knee pads and whatever else.
Yeah, the red boots.
He had a ton because he would wear red, he would wear green, teal, yellow, black,
Purple too, right?
purple. Razor had some good tights.
Good
But his
stuff.
was just colors. It wasn't.
Yeah, it never really
designs.
changed.
Yeah. Do you have your thoughts on Razor Ramon's tights?
I am quite ambivalent on the tight question. I will defer to you guys and your expert opinion.
Well, this was fun for me. This was, just something figured we do differently, and hope everyone enjoyed it. I know this wasn't typical Necronomipod, but just something we wanted to give you guys as a free bonus available to everyone. So, if you liked it, let us know. If you didn't like it, you don't have to let us know. We'll find out in the downloads. Thanks anyways, though. And, if we ever decide to make more of this, it's obviously not going to affect Necronomipod. That's going to stay the same. So thank you guys very much, and check you later. Bye.